Angelique Chengelis has been our go-to when it comes to Michigan over the years, and she joins us now. 365 Sports with Craig and Paul. I'm David Smoak. Well, you haven't been very busy.
I wish that were accurate. It's been nuts. I mean, since October 19th, it's been nonstop with all of the sign stealing allegations and the investigation and firings and suspensions. I mean, it's been crazy.
When you first heard the story, I don't want to go back on the hamster wheel, but when you first heard the initial accusations, Connor Stallions, did you ever realize how deep it might get?
I mean, no. I mean, I really didn't. I mean, I knew very little of Connor Stallions. I mean, my interaction with him was probably 7 or 8 years ago when he was at the Naval Academy, and he had sent me a message because he'd seen me tweet something about, I wish I could go to the Army-Navy game. And that was really it. I knew that he had a reputation for being a sign stealer, and that was pretty much it. But no, I had no idea that it would be this crazy of a network and as extensive as it seems to be, and certainly didn't see all of the collateral damage, I guess you'd call it, since then.
So after last week, the kind of message from Michigan and Jim Harbaugh was, we're going to fight this to the very end. We're going to do that. And then they get this piece of information that because their contention had been Connor Stallions was a bad actor acting alone. He did this on his, this was all his plan. We didn't know about it. He was just coming to us with his work, and that's all we knew. And then it turns out that a coach on the staff, at least one of them, did know about it. So how nervous are they right now that this goes a little deeper than they had contended at first?
Well, I think the issue with Chris Partridge, who you're referring to, the linebackers coach who was fired Friday, the story that I wrote Friday is talking to high-level people at Michigan is the information that the Big Ten got was that he was pressuring student athletes, but football players to be untruthful with the NCAA investigators. I mean, they've been on campus since a week ago Monday, interviewing different players about Connor Stallions, about what they know of this situation. And that's where Chris Partridge got in trouble. And I think that was information that was relayed from the Big Ten, because the Big Ten's been getting information from the NCAA. The Big Ten's not conducting its own investigation. That's all the NCAA. And that was relayed to the lawyers who represent the University of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh's lawyers. And that was ultimately why they ended up pulling out of the hearing that they wanted last Friday for a preliminary injunction so that Harbaugh could be back on the field at the very least for Saturday's game against Ohio State. And as we know, that's not happening. And yeah, I mean, of course, I think that there's probably going to be more. I just don't know what yet. I mean, I think that this investigation is very much ongoing. I don't believe the NCAA investigators are interviewing players this week. I think they're taking a break because of Thanksgiving, but they're going to be back and a lot of questions to be asked. And I mean, I can't imagine that there aren't others who knew about this.
Angelique, Twitter's not always the real world. It can be a fun house sometimes. But based on what I see from Michigan fans, would it be fair to assume that they are really galvanized behind Jim Harbaugh? Does he have as much support as ever, or is that simply a Twitter outlier?
No, I think you're right. I mean, and yeah, I don't want to put too much credibility in Twitter because we know that it can be all over the place. But just based on checking out, scanning the message boards, and talking to Michigan fans, I hear from a lot of friends who are Michigan fans, and yeah, very much so. I mean, he's getting support. He's getting support from the president, Santa Ono, who I thought it was kind of a careless tweet last week that Ono put out there, made Michigan look like a victim, I thought, but he's had support from them. He has support from the university region, and it's going to be very interesting where this goes because. The week that this broke, that Monday, there was a lot of conversation about Jim Harbaugh getting a contract extension, that the offer was there, that he would be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. And then when this came out, it was temporarily withdrawn. And I guess essentially it was paused. Doesn't mean the offer was gone forever. It was just paused. And And there are still people saying, well, get that contract done, get it out there. And I don't think that's the next step. I mean, I think they have to be very much aware of where this is going. They already see what the Big Ten has done, and the Big Ten's done. But, this is now an NCAA matter. And don't forget, there's the other NCAA investigation that they haven't even received a notice of allegations for the impermissible recruiting visits during COVID in 2021 during the dead period. So there are a lot of loose ends here, and answers certainly that the NCAA that they're looking for in terms of this latest investigation.
Angelique, yesterday Jim Harbaugh was at his press conference, and he was asked about Ryan Day, and his response was anything but about Ryan Day. This is already one of the most vicious, I guess, tradition-rich rivalries. Is it at an all-time high? Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler on drugs?
It's different than that. I mean, and Ryan Day was asked about the same question about Jim Harbaugh today, and he skirted it as well. So there's no love lost there. I think it was different, obviously, with Woody and Bo. They had a relationship. They were friends ultimately. And no, there's nothing friendly here. And yeah, this is heightened. I mean, this is it's. I don't know if I want to call it toxic levels, but it's definitely it's getting there in terms of the fan bases and just how ugly it seems to have gotten. And yeah, I mean, I think it's both of them. I really am disappointed we're not going to see the handshake after the game on Saturday between Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh, because I really was looking forward to how that was going to look. But yeah, it's gotten very ugly.
Angelique, when do you guys find out about what happened with Matt Weiss? Like, when is that information coming out?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, it's been since January. I have filed open record requests and gotten as far as I could go with that. And, the University of Michigan Police Department has been working on that mostly. I mean, and then they have help from the FBI. I mean, I always thought it was probably too big of an investigation for the U of M Police Department just because of resources. And, this is something that is across state lines. So that's why you bring in the FBI to help in that matter. And it's going on. I mean, it'll be January 5th, I think, was when they actually, it appeared on the police blotter. And this offense apparently took place last December 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Those are about that 3-day range. So it's going on a year. And it's a little stunning that it's taken this long to get somewhere on that. And it's been very frustrating trying to get answers and being, just running into walls every time.
So, Angelique, as far as the game goes, obviously it's a huge matchup, a lot of implications here. I was just reading earlier today, the jockeying for positions in the playoff, and obviously one of the, I guess, complaints about Michigan right now is just the strength of schedule, which will get boosted immensely this weekend. But what are your thoughts on where Michigan sits heading into this one, and also as far as the matchup itself goes as they enter this one?
Well, I mean, I really think that right now I've got to give the advantage to Ohio State. I mean, I think that they're peaking at the right time, and Michigan has struggled the last couple of weeks, and maybe that's because Jim Harbaugh hasn't been on the sideline. I'm not sure, but you see, J.J. McCarthy has been dealing with a bit of an ankle issue. I think that their offensive line, which I've tried to tell people here, the last several months, that this is not the Joe Moore award-winning line that they had the last 2 years, and I think you're seeing that the tackles are being exposed a bit, and it's not giving time to J.J. McCarthy, and certainly the running backs have had their issues behind this line, but they've got a lot of weapons at Ohio State. But I think Michigan's defense is certainly up to the task, just as Ohio State's is. I mean, these are two really fine defenses. And I think I really have to think that it's going to be up to Kyle McCord. How is he going to handle his first big stage in this matchup and not playing at home? And, we were saying that about J.J. McCarthy last year when he went to Columbus, and look how well he did. So, maybe it's not as much of a factor as we think, but I got to believe that it's a little bit of one for Ohio State coming into this. But right now, I got to think that they have the edge.
It seems as if Michigan has used all of this as almost an us against the world. That's what they have used, in Harbaugh too. But You mentioned the game with Maryland, which got a little bit dicey, and this hasn't happened much with them. No matter how well they've played, do you feel like, other than maybe Harbaugh not on the sideline, that there could be a gas tank that's emotionally more on empty than before?
Well, that's a really good question. And I really do. This team has impressed me with its ability to, I guess, compartmentalize, I guess is the right description. I mean, they've really been able to shut things down. And some of them have said they've just eliminated social media so they don't have to see all this stuff. But I've got to believe it wears on them. I mean, they get questions about it. I'm going to go to practice after practice tonight, and then they're going to get more questions about it. You know, how are you dealing with this? And yeah, I mean, they're all wearing their Michigan versus everybody gear, and you know, it's not a new thing. That's been out for a couple of years, but it certainly has picked up steam, and they are feeling a bit like it's us against the world. And teams use that all the time. You know, that's the chip on the shoulder that a lot of teams respond to, but you know, will it be enough? I don't know. I mean, this is their biggest test. They've had their biggest test in these last few weeks, and you know, they watched a 20-point lead start to evaporate last week at Maryland, and that was a big test for them. And Blake Fordham said maybe it's what they needed heading into this game. We'll see, but I do think this team the players are different. I've covered this team for a long time, and there is a resiliency there. Is that enough? I don't know on Saturday, but I don't think that this has caused them to lose focus.
Angelique, if Wonder Woman busted into the Michigan Athletic Department, threw the lasso of truth on Ward Manuel and said, Ward, all this stuff's going on around the program, NCAA investigation and FBI and Connor Stallions, all of that. If Jim Harbaugh just went to the Bears next year, would you be okay with that? What would his answer be?
I think, you know, I've got to believe that Ward Manuel has thought all along, based on the last couple years, Jim Harbaugh's flirtation with the Vikings. I mean, going to Minnesota on National Signing Day in February for an interview, coming back empty-handed, but then earlier this year, talking to the Bears. I mean, pardon me, the Broncos, and that got extremely serious. So I think that I don't know how Ward would respond. I just don't think he'd be surprised. I think that he knows that Jim Harbaugh has NFL aspirations, and Jim did not make that secret a couple of years ago. He said he wouldn't do it again, but he did. You know, he talked to the Broncos, and you know, would this be an easy way out for Ward? Probably. Then he doesn't have to make any big decisions. But I think there are going to be big decisions that need to be made, and maybe Jim makes it, maybe Ward makes it.
I know it's going to be a great event to cover. Unbelievable crowd at Ann Arbor. Last thing, I want to finish with a high note. Blake Corum handing out turkeys through his NIL. And what a great story. And you did a great job with it. What kind of young man is he? Came back from the injury, obviously having another productive year, leads the country in touchdown runs, but also the human being himself.
Yeah, he's he is a special guy, and I was thinking about him today because I've been to each of his. This is the third year that he's used his NIL money to buy turkeys, and it went from 200 in 2021 to 300 in 2022, and Sunday it was 600 turkeys. And, you know, he's walking around carrying 3 at a time, going door to door, knocking and giving these turkey dinners to these underserved communities in Ypsilanti. And he's just a wonderful guy. I mean, he's doing a toy drive for a Detroit youth ministry. That's in December with a bunch of his teammates. So he is, as good of a player as he is, he's a better person. And they're going to miss him for sure for so many reasons.
Angelique, thank you. Very busy time for you, even if there wasn't all the other stuff behind the scenes. Thank you so much for being a go-to talking about Michigan.
My pleasure, and happy Thanksgiving,
you
everyone.
Too. Angelique Chengelis with us, the Detroit Free Press. Imagine